Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to this week's critique session with my good friend Alister Benn. For those of you that are new to these critique sessions, welcome. If you kind of want to know what we do here, basically we take one or two images from our viewers, and both myself and Alister give a bit of a critique of that image. We're not here to tell anybody how to take photographs. It's just our opinions and things that perhaps might strike us in the photograph that we really like, and other things that perhaps don't quite sit well with us, and so on. That's a critique. So without further delay, let's get stuck right into this week's image. This is just an absolutely stunning photograph. There's nothing in here that I don't like about this photograph. I love the wintry conditions. I wish I had more conditions like this in my own photography. I love the texture of the tree, the details, and it looks like Joanna has also lightened up the edges. I could be wrong there, but it looks like it's light. So it has this open, ethereal, airy look to the photograph. It's absolutely beautiful, and it doesn't need any kind of changing. The only thing that, I mean, this is really nitpicking here, and it's not really necessary, but I do find that the image is a little static. And what I mean by that is, because we have the tree in the center here, it does look quite static. There's no movement between elements in the frame. It's just the tree stuck in the center. And I do this a lot with my own photography. Sometimes I find my own photography a little static because I don't know what to do with an object, so I'll just stick it in the middle, and hopefully it'll be balanced out enough on each side to kind of pull the image together. Now, I did try a couple of different cropping options, and one of the options that I looked at was a 1:1 here. Now, of course, this is a pretty drastic crop, so it probably would be more beneficial just to take another image with a slightly longer focal length while we're in the field here. But what I was looking at is I quite like this play where if you crop it to a square like this, you'll notice that now all of a sudden the tree is slightly off center here. And to my eye, it's playing against this ever so slightly, this tree that you can just barely make out in the distance here behind. So we're looking between this tree and this tree now. So it opens up the possibility of having an image that doesn't look quite so static. The conditions haven't changed. Everything is still beautiful about the photograph. We've just zeroed in a little bit more into the interest, or the part that interests me, and that's this central portion here. So that was just one of the options that I was looking at, and of course this would also work as a horizontal, say like this, something like that. That works as well. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all that I have to say about this. It's just an absolutely beautiful image. Well done.
Well, I think I want to say straight off the bat that I love this. And I know that that's based on opinion, but I'm going to back that up by not just analyzing it as a photographer, but understanding what it is about it that I like. I think when we see a photograph, as photographers, we have a tendency to be very, very critical because we understand our own relationship with the world, but we sometimes struggle when we see other people's interpretations of that. So I think from my point of view, this is an image that is very accomplished. It's been very nicely put together and has created some lovely, there's such strong intent in it. From putting the tree absolutely slap bang in the center, from using a classic 4:5 vertical aspect ratio, which is going to feel, in the words of Hans Strand, just more expensive. I think that was one of the great joys of medium format, that 4:5 aspect ratio, is it just feels very classic. It is somewhat taller than it is wide, but at the end of the day, it's emphasizing the height in a subtle way rather than a dramatic 3:2 or 16:9 way. I love the starkness of the situation. I love the energy and the atmosphere, the glowing white of the frost, and the contrast and the geometry that's being brought in by these branches coming off of the trunk here. Everything is very harmonious. The color palette is very harmonious. We can see a slight blue tinge to the front edge of the histogram there in the highlights. And what that's doing is it's making it feel cool without it actually looking cool. It's very easy with photographs like this to make them too cool or too saturated. We should be able to feel the coldness without it being in our face too much. And ironically, the shadows are warmer. The richness of the bark here is quite an incongruous one, where the highlights are cool and the shadows are warm, and that's very much counterintuitive to what most split toning is, which is cooling the shadows and warming the highlights. So I think that has created quite an incongruous change. The fact that the outer rim is brighter, this has been vignetted with light to increase the highlights and to increase the luminosity of the outer rim. So we're creating a white vignette, which actually means that the middle center section, this is where most of our midtones are, or our darker highlights are, is in the center of the frame. So it is creating quite an ethereal situation where the outer rim has less clarity, the outer rim has more negative dehaze, the outer rim has brighter highlights. It's just generally brighter. So there's quite a few devices here that are being used to create an image that's a definition of a reality that's quite different from how it would have been perceived. You can imagine the raw file here would be much more tonally consistent across the frame, that the edges would be of a similar tone to the middle, and it would feel flatter, whereas here it's almost like we're looking through a dreamy window into the forest. I have nothing but admiration for this photograph, and it would be a struggle to find flaws. Little edges here where the darkness impedes the frame side, and I'll just do this very, very bluntly in Lightroom here. As soon as we remove that, we're allowing this bright motif to continue, because if we put it back in, all of a sudden it catches my eye. There's a couple of little white spots in here too that I might consider doing something about, just because I do find they catch my eye a little bit. But on the whole, I think this is a wonderful photograph, loaded with atmosphere, loaded with feeling, and it's right up my street. And I applaud Joanna for making some fairly unconventional choices. The center composition, the balance, the symmetry, and then obviously the brighter vignette. So super image, in my opinion, and one I would gladly stick on the wall, actually. So thank you very much for sharing this one.